Now we've got time for questions. So if there are questions you have, if you would please, stand up, just identify your name and who you'd like to ask a question to, and hopefully the people would come up here and answer the questions. Open for questions. There's one question right at the back there. Could you speak up loud, please?
Thank you. My name's Lewis Stanton. I'd like to address this to Brett and James. What is the percentage of construction workers in relation to the AFL players? What's the percentage that are involved in construction?
Thanks for your question, and for these guys over here who might have struggled, how many construction workers' stories do we have as part of the 10? So we tried to break it up. I guess we had 10 stories and we had 3 stakeholders. So effectively we tried to find a split between players, coaches and construction workers. So we have 3 stories. We'd love to have more, but unfortunately our resources sort of stopped at that point.
Is the AFL quite supportive of this, and are they putting money into it?
Absolutely. I don't know how much AFL news makes its way north of the border, but at the moment we're in, I guess, CBA negotiations, and we'd like to think that post those negotiations that we've got a little bit more resourcing to be able to continue it on.
The gentleman in the yellow tie.
Yes, in the first presentation, it's Christopher Rankin from the Air Conditioning Mechanical Contractors Association. We've got a fairly strong link to maintenance construction. It concerns me that there was a comment made that youth are more receptive to communications and are more receptive to understanding the risks associated with suicide, and yet they remain our largest cohort. How do we explain that? I'm not convinced that youth really are as well connected as everyone seems to perceive. Being on Facebook and networking is not quite the same thing. And as I said, the numbers don't support it. There are largest cohort of suicide.
Alison.
It's actually the middle-aged men that are most at risk of suicide in Australia. So if you look at the ABS statistics, but I do take your point.
Construction, isn't it 16 to 24?
No, I think it's middle age. So I did a report last year for Mates in Construction that has that data in it, which we'll be mentioning this afternoon. But I do take your point, because there's still something going on there. So if we have increasing mental health literacy, if we have people being more open to talking about mental health, why do we still have suicide among young men? And I think that's something we need to think about as an industry and as a community, about what else is going on there. My thoughts on it, and obviously I can't be across everything, and I'm not a man, and I'm an academic, so there's a few sort of things we need to take into account there, so excuse me. But I believe the world is becoming more complex for young people, or they're perceiving it as being more complex, whether that's due to, so my background is in the understanding of how work influences mental health. We do see that the way people are entering into construction and many other industries and jobs in society, they are faced with more challenges than older workers. So that and you would have all experienced this yourself when you went into the workplace. There are a lot more pressures on young people generally. So they're new, they don't know what's going on. There's more job insecurity now than ever before, and that's driven by globalisation and et cetera, we can talk about. There is more inputs as well from electronic sources. So there has been some studies saying, and I haven't evaluated the rigour of these studies, about the stresses associated with electronic communications and mobile phones and blah, 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 blah. So there's those sorts of things. I believe the world is a complex place for a young man within Australia at the moment, particularly as they navigate their way into becoming a man. So I think that has got a lot. It's not just about how well they recognise the signs of depression. It's not just about the extent to which they are able to talk about their mental health. While those are protective, there are other risk factors that are facing them that are pushing their rates of suicide up.
My follow-up would be that it's a really strange thing, isn't it, that we work in building and construction, and a construction worker is probably among that cohort that is least likely to own or build his own home.
Yes.
And just recently I had a conversation with the Assistant Minister in this space who passed on the wisdom that in his discussions with youth, he didn't think that that the youth were necessarily aspiring to home ownership.
Yep.
It's a great concern, or at least it should be, that an assistant minister of the Crown would reflect that in a conversation. Because first of all, I don't believe it's true. But if it's the general consensus seeping through politics that younger people don't really care about home ownership, then I think we've actually got a societal and fundamental problem.
Yep.
You know, it's a really big deal. And you know, I'm sort of getting off topic, but I'm not really. I'm in building and construction. It just seems really odd that we can't own and build our own homes.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And there has, I don't do it, but I've got some colleagues that have been doing work on housing and mental health for years. And, you know, I think 10 years ago, everyone thought, why are you doing that? That's crazy. What's there a link between housing and mental health? Nobody wants to hear about that. And now suddenly, there's this whole smashed avocado thing that crops up in Parliament, and this has become a really hot area of research. So what that is showing us, and what it's shown us for some time, is that it's not just housing, it's the connection between housing and employment. So if you're precariously employed, and by that I mean you're in an industry with high rates of unemployment, or you feel insecure in your job, and you are more likely to be affected by housing stress. So and I think that is where what you're saying about young people comes to play, because a lot of people are insecurely employed, and at the same time there is rising house prices. So I think they are related, and yes, they all need to be discussed within the context of mental health in young people. Thank you.
Now there's one other question there, Annette.
I never heard a strong lead lease. I've also got a question from Alison. You said that there are about 13,000 people notified of the availability of the SMS service, and then only about 860 or so took up. Was that what you expected? Was it lower, higher, and why might that be the case?
Well, Chan, Patrice, you can jump up at any point. We were disappointed. The reasons for that, I believe what really needs to happen for people to take on mental health campaigns is there needs to be somebody following them up. And I think that we get bombarded with messages so much of the time in Facebook and other things, then you sort of just flip past them. So I think it's something, I believe it's about that. And so if we had someone from IncoLink you're a member of IncoLink, you have someone phoning you and saying, hey, do you want to be involved in this? We'd really love to have you. I think that is what got people over the line. So if you think about masculinity within the context of that as well, it's like I felt like we just needed to go that extra step to engage them. So yes, we were disappointed. Yes, I was surprised. And I'm still trying to understand what that means for big, like, social media marketing mental health campaigns. So I don't know, do you have anything else to add to that, Chan?
Supplementary question. Well, would you consider people, personal relations, saying, hey, I think this is for you, and so getting referrals in that way?
Yes. Yep.
It's a digital tool, so at the end of the day, it still goes back to human connection. And it's when that human connection that is empowered by the digital tool, then you have a result. So you can't push things out and think people will pick it up. And like Alison says, one can do an app, there's another dispensing or a message. So it's that defining point there.
And to add further to your point, a lot of the people that when were in our trial, I think about 20% of them had female partners or another partner saying, get on board with this. So we did have to have people around the men that ended up in our trial pushing them into it as well. So that's complicated, and you can talk about why that is. And I think Paul spoke to some of those issues this morning as well. So, yeah, no worries, thanks.
Thank you.
I had a question for William. Old mate. So I've got, like, my brother-in-law is a spray painter, and he uses old mate like a negative thing. He's like, oh, he's such an old mate. So I don't know, like, I thought it was a negative thing, like an old mate, but then I'm like, well, the lexicon might be different in...
I think what we've found is that it depends on the context, and like most Australian slang.
Yeah.
I'm about to say something inappropriate, but if you say, oh, old mate's got it,
Yeah.
It could basically be anybody now.
Yes, could be old mate.
Yeah. And the tagline for the campaign as well is suicide prevention never gets old.
Yeah.
And a lot of the language that we use is
designed to be, it sounds cheesy, but attention grabbing. We want people to ask about that. The official title of it is hashtag Polkinghorne. One of the aspects of the campaign, and now I'm just advertising it, is that in order to receive a discount, they go to an event, they take a selfie with the wrong mate, they go to social media and create that influx in that participatory sense about it. So the length of the word we kind of claimed.
Yeah.
And I think it can be used negatively. It can be used to throw away a word more positively. We're framing it as quite literally. It's
An old mate.
Old mate.
Righto.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
stealing, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. I thought that was really interesting, actually.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? None? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Robert Farida to come up here. Now, we cannot do any of this till we have sponsors and people who assist us. So Robert, very quickly come and tell us about Polkinghorne, and then we'll move on.
Thanks, all. And just before, I just also like to thank the speakers who spoke about three very different topics, but all very much connected to connecting with people, which is, of course, what Mates in Construction is all about. At the risk of any free advertising, like William said, Polkinghorne is an integrated construction company. We mostly deal in the infrastructure space. It's originally from New Zealand, but it's been operating here in Australia for about 20 years. Everything from the supply chain regarding asphalt, quarrying products, through to the roads and bridges and freeways and airports that you guys may use from time to time. We're in that industry, and just like a lot of people in this room, we have a broad workforce ranging from blue-collar workers who are similar to the people you would have seen in the videos today, through to engineers, lawyers, accounts people, and all of them are under various pressures and are all feel anxiety and feel happy from time to time, and we're all touched by some of the things that we spoke about today. So look, it's certainly a pleasure to be associated with Mates in Construction, and also a sponsor of or a co-sponsor of today's event, and we wish the event all the best going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.
So again, thank you so much indeed for the sponsors, okay? Again, thank you very much indeed for the speakers. Looking at three different areas, okay? Very shortly, we're going to break for lunch, and lunch was again sponsored by ProBuild, so thank you very much indeed, ProBuild. To all of our guests here, to all of you sitting here, thank you very much indeed. So again, for the last time, a great round of applause for our wonderful speakers. Thank you very much, all of you.